The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Good morning. Court Radio is now in session. Call 215-227-2727. When you've got legal questions, we've got the answers. This is Court Radio. And now here's your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome to Court Radio. I'm Dean Weitzman, and this is your hour to ask legal questions one at a time by giving us a call at 215-227-2727. That's the number you need to call for all your legal needs, 24/7 and around the clock. All you got to do is give us a call at 215-227-2727. But for this morning, during Court Radio, that'll get you into our studios, and we'll answer your questions one at a time. Okay, folks, we got some legal news to talk about in this week. First of all, happily, a Trenton mother and her family won the giant Powerball lottery. That's right. A local mom and her family won the $429 million with a Powerball jackpot. Wow. I bought a ticket to that jackpot. I thought I was going to be the winner. Well, I'm happy it's somebody local, and I hope that they have much good things come from that win. Though sometimes lottery wins can be more of a curse than a blessing for folks. So best to get good advice and learn to live with the money and grow with it, because it can change people. 215-227-2727. We have also a local verdict that came out this week. Well, it's actually a settlement. The case was prepared to go to trial, but settled for a little over $7 million against the Rodin Museum. That's the museum on the Parkway that has sculptures. And a fellow who was in there doing an inspection fell from an area and sustained really catastrophic injuries. That case settled this week. So we're happy to see that that's resolved. You know, when cases get settled, I mean, it's not really a windfall for the person who receives the money, whether it's a small amount of money, you know, or a large amount of money, or a life-changing amount of money. It's not a windfall. It's not like you won the lottery. You've sustained an injury to some extent, and maybe, and unfortunately, in many instances, to a horrific extent. And this money is given to you to make you, to the best of the legal system's ability, to make you whole. They can never undo your injury, but hopefully this money can be used to mitigate the consequences of the injury. And so we're happy to see that matter resolved. We have some callers already, but there's other legal news. So we're going to get to those callers in a minute. Let's see. One last thing, and that is that we're going to be talking today about a new law that went into effect, or will be going into effect, in a couple days. And that law is Senate Bill number 3. And that is the legalization of medical marijuana. Pennsylvania, Governor Wolf signed it into law. The House, the Senate, they all passed it. And starting in 2 days, medical marijuana will be legal. Will you be able to go out and buy it in 2 days? No. You probably won't be able to go out and buy it in a year in 2 days. But it's going to take some time for everything to gear up, but it's coming. Pennsylvania is the first state that the legislature has passed a law legalizing marijuana for medical purposes. In all the other, you say, Dean, what are you talking about? It's legal in Colorado and it's legal in California. Yes, it's legal in other places, but in those places it passed by a referendum of the voters. Here, the legislature passed it, which is kind of interesting because it's still illegal federally. And so our state legislature has passed a law that is in conflict to some extent with the federal government. But, you know, they were brave souls, brave men and women in Harrisburg, and they took it upon themselves to pass this law because it will do so much good, I'm sure, for those who suffer with certain illnesses. 215-227-2727. Let's talk to Toya from Pennsauken on line 3. Good morning. Toya.
Yes, how are you?
We're fine, thanks. How about you?
I'm good. On my way to work. I'm calling because I have a question about my sister in 2011 suing me and my daughter a judgment because my daughter didn't have car insurance on her vehicle. My sister was about 33 at the time, and she took my daughter out to party, her and her girlfriend. My daughter's girlfriend was the designated driver, but her and my sister had got in some kind of confrontation, which led my daughter to drive. My sister let my daughter get behind the wheel, and apparently I wasn't even aware of any accident or anything. You know, I was just a co-sign on the car, but next thing I know, 2 years later, I'm getting a paper in the mail stating that I have a court date. Not even a court date, because I didn't even get a paper to even go to court. I just found out that I had a judgment against me, and they stopped my license and everything, you know, me and my daughter. So I wanted to know if it's too late for me to take my sister back to court, you know, because she had my daughter actually driving while she was under the age, and she didn't even call me to, you know, make me aware that, you know, my daughter was in an accident or anything. You know, she just went on with her life. You know?
Right.
So
here's the deal, Toya. Okay, so the deal is that it really depends on whether you received notice. Now, I understand you say you didn't receive notice, but if they sent notice and you didn't get it, but it was deemed good service, somebody delivered the complaint to your house, and maybe somebody snatched it or you didn't see it, but if it was, and time has passed for taking an appeal because you said it was 2007, even if the judgment was entered in 2011, say, it still would be more than 4 years ago. And yes, the statute of limitations is long gone to relitigate those issues. And you may have had a wonderful defense at the time, like your sister, you know, gave the car to your daughter and she should not have done that. But those good defenses go up in smoke when too much time has passed.
Yeah, but this was in 2011, but she didn't file the paperwork until 2014.
She filed it in 2014.
Yeah, that's when everything, because what happened, I went to the Hall of Justice, and they told me that they dismissed it 2 times. So I guess she had got a lawyer or something. And that's when the paperwork says 2014, but the accident actually happened in 2011.
Yeah, well, see, what happens is if you file your complaint on time within 2 years and you have trouble serving it, then the court will extend the service. But it goes back to its original filing date. Again, to a 2014 judgment in 2016 is not something you'd be able to appeal today, most likely as long as all of the I's have been dotted and T's crossed. But again, that, you know, we would need to see all the paperwork and kind of watch the progression of this case. A lot of times these cases come up not because your sister sued you, but because she made a claim against a government, I don't know, insurance department called in New Jersey, it's called PLIGA. If she made a claim against PLIGA, PLIGA can force her to sue you and get a judgment. And and PLIGA is the one who's already paid your sister. Like your sister got paid, and now this government agency, because I assume there was no insurance on the car that you owned and your daughter was driving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So no insurance. What was that?
I was a co-signer on the vehicle.
Got it. Okay, well, that's another, yeah, I mean, we've talked to many a co-signer on vehicles, and unfortunately, you got to make sure it's insured because it's in your name. No insurance, PLIGA paid, and then they come after you to get money back that they paid to your sister. I'm sure that the time has gone, but to...
because it's really bad on her, you know.
You can file bankruptcy. You can file bankruptcy. It would get rid of that judgment. The question is whether it would allow you to get your license back once the judgment is gone. And that's not an answer I have right off the top of my head. I'm just not sure if that's the case. I could look into that. But thanks for giving us a call. If you want it, okay, and if you need a referral on the bankruptcy, feel free to give us a call during the week at 215-227-2727. We'll be happy to refer you to one of the attorneys that we work with on bankruptcy cases.
All right, thank you.
All right, Toya, take care. Yeah, folks, you got to make sure that if you're, co-signing a loan it's bad enough that when you co-sign, if the person who you're co-signing for doesn't pay, they're coming after you like it's your loan. They don't take it easy on a co-signer. They're coming after you as if it's your loan. So every month, if that person makes a payment late or they don't make a payment, you're going to get a telephone call. Secondly, you have to make sure that the person you're co-signing for has insurance on the car for the entire time that they own the car, because if they don't and they get into an accident, it's your butt that's on the line. It's your house. It's your property. Co-signing is almost never a good idea. It really isn't. And, boyfriends and girlfriends co-sign, and then they're no longer boyfriends and girlfriends, and then they're enemies, and then it's just a big mess. Better to just give them the money. Gift it to them. Just give it to them, Less aggravation that way. All right, 215-227-2727. So what do you folks think about medical marijuana? Do you think it's the tip of the iceberg? Are we going to move to recreational marijuana at some point in Pennsylvania? And, there's all kinds of aspects of the law that you got to understand before you get involved in it. And for that, we've brought an expert in. We've brought in Becky Dansky from MPP. What is that? Becky, good morning and welcome to Court Radio.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. And yourself?
Great.
So
tired.
Yeah, that's usually the case at 7:15 on a Sunday morning. Becky, tell me, what's MPP stand for?
The Marijuana Policy Project.
Okay. And what is it that you folks do, and how are you going to help us in Pennsylvania with this new law we have?
Sure. First of all, MPP is an organization that was founded 21 years ago, and we are the largest national organization devoted to reforming marijuana laws. We've been involved in Pennsylvania for a long time now. I know one of my colleagues testified before a committee 6 or 7 years ago at this point, when they first started considering legislation regarding medical marijuana. And so we were involved. We became deeply involved about a year ago when a group of advocates in Pennsylvania asked us for our support, and we came in, and so we worked closely with those folks at Campaign for Compassion, which was an advocate group, and helped them to get this law passed.
Yeah, and the law, it's going to take a little while to go into effect, but the law, SB 3 it's called, what somebody who needs marijuana for a medical condition, what are they supposed to do in order to get that drug for themselves?
Sure. The first step is to talk to your doctor. In order to become a part of the medical marijuana program in Pennsylvania, you'll have to register with the Department of Health. And in order to do that, the first step is to get a recommendation from your doctor saying that you, first of all, have been diagnosed with one of the 17 conditions included in the legislation. And second of all, that your doctor believes that you could potentially benefit from medical marijuana. After that, you finish the application process with the Department of Health, and then you would receive a certification card or an ID card, at which point that will create legal protections for you if you are in possession of medical marijuana in the state of Pennsylvania, as long as that medical marijuana complies with the law itself. Unfortunately, it'll probably be about 18 months to 2 years before the first dispensary opens its doors, but that's pretty typical for most states. The fastest state we've ever had go from the law coming into effect to actually doors opening a dispensary is Minnesota, which was about a year, 13 months. But their law was much narrower than Pennsylvania's law, so we're anticipating it'll be closer to a year and a half before we see a dispensary open. Of course, we do have the benefit in the state of Pennsylvania of a governor who is incredibly supportive, as well as a Department of Health that is doing everything they can to get this done as quickly as possible.
Do you think that this is the tip of the iceberg? Do you think that possibly Pennsylvania will move toward a even broader, not medical marijuana basis, more recreational?
I think that the entire country will eventually move to full legalization, and we advocate for the tax and regulation of marijuana, but it's not necessarily a stepping stone. Some folks say that, oh, this is just about getting a foot in the door. It's more about getting it to the people who need it most first. And people who say, oh, this is a slippery slope right into adult use of marijuana. The fact of the matter is we have 24 states with medical marijuana plus the District of Columbia. Currently, we only have 4 states that have legalized marijuana. Of course, that number will probably be going up in the next year since there are ballot initiatives in a number of states, and even some state legislatures are considering it. But I think the important thing to focus on in Pennsylvania right now is the implementation of the medical marijuana program.
And in that regard, Pennsylvania is going to have 25 growers' licenses that they're going to issue and 50 dispensary licenses. And the 50 dispensaries can each have up to 3 dispensaries. So there could be up to 150 dispensaries across Pennsylvania in the coming years. I wonder if that's going to be enough or too much. You know, I mean, Pennsylvania's a big state geographically anyway.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why it was so important to fight for so many dispensaries, because if you don't have enough dispensaries for the patients in your state, then, you know, to a certain extent, there's no point in having a program if people can't actually access the medication. In some larger states, they have rules about if it's you're more than a certain distance from a dispensary, you're allowed to grow your own. Home grow was a non-starter in Pennsylvania. We have to remember this is a Republican-controlled House and Senate, and the fact that we were able to get a bill as strong as what we got is actually pretty remarkable. So 150 dispensaries potentially is I think, a great place to start, and ultimately the Department of Health can add more dispensaries. Potentially, we're looking at 250,000 patients who will be eligible in Pennsylvania out of a population of around 12 million.
That's it? 250,000? That's it?
If based on, and these are numbers that were predicted by legislative staff and now talking to the governor's office, that's 250,000 people who will qualify. It's not necessarily 250,000 people who will even try to become in the program, or people whose doctors may not be willing to let them participate in the program. But as you said, it's a really big state. I grew up outside Philadelphia, which I have been told means I'm not actually from Pennsylvania. So it really was a huge win to get that many licenses, because we wanted to make sure that they didn't all end up being in the urban areas and leaving rural people in kind of some of the less populous parts of the state without an option nearby.
Don't you think, though, anyone who wants to get a license or the right to purchase medical marijuana, anyone who wants to can, almost anybody. I mean, you look at one of the diseases that's accepted, and it's damage to the nervous tissue of the spinal cord with objective neurologic indication of intractable or chronic pain. So, I mean, what I do when I'm not doing court radio is I'm a personal injury attorney. I represent people who have been injured in auto accidents, slip and falls, medical malpractice. And a lot of my clients have back injuries, and they get a positive EMG, which is a standard routine test. They might have something called a herniated disc, or a bulging disc, which is compressing a nerve root. They seem like they would be eligible under this.
Not necessarily. You notice that the language at the end of that with intractable or chronic pain requires a certain level of pain. It's not, I lifted too much yesterday, now my back kind of hurts. It has to be chronic and persistent pain. So someone who has a long-term back injury, and of course, even in cases of someone who's been in an accident, they could potentially have an identification card that only lasts for a certain period of time. Every patient has to have their card renewed annually, but doctors can also specify a specific period of time during the patient access. At the end of the day, chronic pain or intractable pain is important to include in legislation because there are so many conditions that have that as a side effect that lawmakers don't specify in the legislation. Things like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus that, we had hoped to get in the bill, but we didn't. And in the meantime, before we get those added, those patients will have access under that term. And as far as anybody being able to get a card, this is a pretty conservative law, as I mentioned, based on who is currently in the General Assembly. And there's a pretty specific, narrow type of category and what doctors are going to be willing to actually recommend for. At the end of the day, just for devil's advocate's sake, if people are getting cards that maybe you don't personally believe should necessarily have access, what we have to remember is that you don't need an ID card or to go through all of this process to get opioids in Pennsylvania. And that's something that can kill you, whereas marijuana is something that it is impossible to legally overdose on. So we'd rather to see patients trying medical marijuana before they're trying something more dangerous like opioids.
That's a great point. And in fact, I think that, the federal government is trying to get doctors not to write prescriptions for opioids for pain conditions because it's been so incredibly overused.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one more note that I would point out is, and we just recently got another study on this, we found states that legalized medical marijuana within the first year witnessed a 25% drop in opioid overdose deaths in their state.
Wow.
That continues to go up, and that around 5 years they see a 33% drop in opioid overdose deaths.
Wow.
And that's the little thing that nobody wants to talk about, or a lot of our opponents don't. We'll have an attorney general in this state like Nebraska in one breath talk about we have to stop the opioid epidemic, and the next breath say we absolutely cannot legalize medical marijuana.
Yeah, don't count on Becky. Don't count on politicians to make sense.
I know that. I've been working in politics a long time.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's one of those things we really need to educate people about, because once they realize that marijuana really is safer than so many prescription drugs, especially those that are used for children with seizure conditions and opioids, that they need to be more open-minded about this and ignore a lot of the stigma and misinformation that's been put out by, in some cases, our own government for decades now.
One last question, and I'm going to let you go back to sleep. I know that this is in contradiction to the federal laws. Okay, that marijuana is a scheduled drug. Isn't there going to be problems with doctors who write these scripts? And has there been any doctors who've been prosecuted around the country that have participated in medical marijuana?
Excellent question, and one that there's a lot of confusion about. Unfortunately, the federal government is way behind the states on this issue. So being a Schedule I drug means that this drug has no medical benefits whatsoever. So currently marijuana is classified by the federal government along with cocaine and heroin, which I think even most marijuana opponents or people who are maybe undecided about medical marijuana will acknowledge is probably a misclassification. As I said, it means there's no medical benefit. It's a ridiculous thing to say when 24 states plus the District of Columbia have passed legislation legalizing medical marijuana. When Pennsylvania became the 24th state, that meant that more than half of people living in the United States live now in a state that has legal medical marijuana. It's time for the federal government to catch up on that.
Yeah.
In terms of
you would think,
a few other things.
You would think Obama could just, pass that as an executive order.
It would be more likely and more permanent if it were to be done by his administration in terms of the agencies, the FDA and the DEA working together to change the federal policies on marijuana. But to your question about doctors being prosecuted, not that we know of. In fact, this administration has had an explicit policy of not intervening in states' medical marijuana laws. And all of the remaining presidential candidates also have that position. We also have a Congress that for the last 2 years included in their funding.
Wait. That didn't get by me. Trump has a position?
Actually, I think he has a few positions on it.
A few positions. Okay. I could believe a few positions.
Well, we do actually grade the presidential candidates on our website, and you can. I do recall it changing at least once or twice, but the same could be said for Hillary Clinton. As Bernie Sanders has actually introduced legislation in the Senate to legalize marijuana. So at the very least, all of these candidates are not anticipated to change that policy of not intervening in states. And as I was starting to say, the Congress has passed as part of their budget the last 2 years an amendment that says no federal funds should be used to intervene in states' marijuana laws.
Oh, that's cool.
So for the foreseeable future, these programs should be allowed to continue to operate, and hopefully once we are able to get the federal government to change their policy, some of the issues about banking and about getting from one state to another with medication will be a lot easier to address.
Yeah, some of these dispensaries up in California, they're like moving tons of cash into vaults and stuff because they don't want to use the banking system for fear that their money will get snatched because it's illegally gotten gains.
Well, the problem in most cases is actually on the side of the banks. They're afraid of getting in trouble for taking that money, whereas the federal government has said to them, if you think that maybe the money that someone is using your institution for, you should send us a letter and let us know. And that's basically what the policy is. And, of course, banks are thinking, well, of course I'm not going to do that. I don't want to take that chance. However, increasingly we're seeing more banks and also credit unions stepping up, some of them anonymously. Some of them, there was one recently in New York that came out and said, hey, we're doing this. And there was somebody who told me recently about a bank that was actually at the ribbon-cutting ceremony of a dispensary that they helped.
Nice.
So I think they're getting a little bit bolder on this. But you look at, like I've mentioned a couple of times, we've got 24 states with legal medical marijuana. We've got 4 states with tax and regulate. We also have, on top of that, 16 states that have CBD laws, which are...
Becky, stand by. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to you.
Oh, sure.
Folks, we're going to be back in 2 minutes.
following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Need more legal answers? Here's more Court Radio with your host, Dean Weitzman.
Okay, we're back, folks, and you're joined with Court Radio Sunday mornings. If you've got legal questions, we probably have the answers. All you got to do is give us a call at 215-227-2727. With me on the line is Becky Dansky from Marijuana Policy Project, who's helped kind of bring this law into being in Pennsylvania, where we are now the 24th state to permit the sale of medical marijuana. Becky, welcome back to Court Radio.
Thanks.
We were talking about doctors being prosecuted. You didn't think that was going to happen, and the federal government really has a don't get involved in state attitude right now with this current administration and probably the next one as well. How do people get in touch with you and your organization if they want to reach out?
Sure. You can send, well, first of all, I would recommend visiting our website, which is mpp.org. And if you click on the state policies link, a map will come up and you just click on Pennsylvania, and that'll bring you to a page that has the most current information about what's going on in Pennsylvania in terms of marijuana policy. And also, if you sign up on our homepage for our alerts, you can get emails whenever anything is going on in the state. And we'll also be keeping both of those, the alerts and the website up to date as we go through the implementation process in Pennsylvania. So that's a good way to stay up to date. And then, of course, if you have specific questions, you can always contact us. The address is state@mpp.org, and that will get to our state policies department and eventually to me.
Say that email again.
State, STATE, @mpp.org.
Got it. Okay. Becky Dansky, thanks for joining us at Court Radio and really giving us some great information on this new bill. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Folks, if you've got questions about medical marijuana or any other legal questions, you can give us a call at 215-227-2727. I want to talk to Carolyn on line 1 from Mount Airy. Hi, Carolyn.
Good morning. Good morning.
So sorry to keep you holding so long, but thanks for your patience.
Thank you. This is my problem. My accountant has not filed my taxes. He has had my W-2 form since March 24th. I have text message confirmation that he did receive them. I have been calling his office, calling his cell phone, leaving messages. He has only responded to 2 of my calls almost every day. One saying I am on an extension, which I don't understand why. He has not explained why. And I called him this past Monday and spoke to the secretary. Secretary said he was on the phone and he will call me back. He has not called me back. Now, my concern is, will I be penalized for my taxes not being filed? And I have been with this accountant since 1990, so I do not know what's going on. He is being very unprofessional right now. So what do I do next?
Well, it seems to me that you need to get another. If you're at your wit's end and you can't work with this guy, you need to get another accountant. And
I'll definitely do that.
Okay, so you get another accountant and you get your taxes filed. If he filed an extension, then you're fine. However, if you owe money on your taxes and he filed an extension, you're still going to have to pay those taxes and any interest and penalties for the late filing. Or the delayed filing. It's not late, but let's say you owe $1,000 in taxes when you file your tax return. Well, that $1,000 really was due on or before April 15th. The extension just gives you a longer period to October 15th to actually file the paperwork. But the cash has to be in the federal government's hands by April 15th. And if it's not, then you pay a little bit of penalty and interest. Now, if this penalty and interest is caused by your accountant's negligence and had no, you were not a reason for that happening, then I think that he would be responsible to pay you back. Accountants can have malpractice suits brought against them just like lawyers or doctors. So that's a possibility. But you may not owe taxes. You may be getting a refund. I don't know. And if that's
I have never had to pay.
Okay.
I've always received refunds.
All right. So you're probably not going to be out any money. But you want to get your refund as soon as possible, and therefore, I would just take the whole thing away from this accountant. Go to the office, get your paperwork back, get your W-2, go to another accountant and get it filed. People have personal problems, and a competent accountant for 20-something years could run into a medical condition, a family condition, an addiction condition. Who knows? And he's no longer the same person you thought he was.
So should I contact the IRS or just go straight to another tax preparer?
I would go straight to another tax preparer. I think you're going to run into a brick wall with the IRS. They're not going to get involved. No, just go down to this accountant's office and get your file with your W-2 and go somewhere else. And maybe when you're down there, you'll have an opportunity to figure out what's really going on with him.
Right. Okay, thank you so much.
Carolyn, take care. Thanks for listening to Court Radio, and have a great Sunday.
Good day.
You too. 215-227-2727. Let's see. Let's talk to Mike from King of Prussia, line 5. Eric.
Good morning.
Hi,
Good
Mike.
morning. Good morning. Thanks for taking a call.
No problem. How are you?
We're doing okay here. We're in the midst of a legal issue, as you're about to find out.
Go ahead. Tell me. Shoot.
My wife and I own a small apartment that we've been renting out for the last year and a half. It's month to month, and basically, it was a year lease, and they were $3,500 behind. So we filed for eviction, and they filed for bankruptcy. At least one of the tenants. There were two tenants, husband and wife. The wife filed for bankruptcy. Now, basically, what happened? I had to get. Because after we had already filed for eviction. Now, my question here is does Pennsylvania have what they call a co-debtor stay, which I guess, as you know, would mean that the other tenant who did not file bankruptcy would be, that debt would also be relieved from the bankruptcy that the wife filed.
And the answer is no, there isn't. But more importantly, unfortunately, you're kind of stuck in the bankruptcy conundrum at this point. You're not going to get the money from the wife, and I wonder, you're going to have to. Everything has to be done down in bankruptcy court. It kind of, presumes jurisdiction over this entire matter.
Right. They actually moved out a week ago.
Oh, lucky you.
So, yes. And so they moved out, and then we still have a court in district court, in Montgomery County District Court, at the end of the month.
Not against the wife, though.
No. It's going to be, it's for post-petition debt. She still owes us $2,000 post-petition.
Ah, okay. All right, so, but even that I wonder. Here's the honest answer, Mike. You're getting into complex bankruptcy questions, which I think should best be handled by a specialist in the bankruptcy law. And I'm gonna tell you that you should give us a call during the week. I have a friend who I went to law school with, and that's all he does 24/7 is bankruptcy. He's great at it. He's really smart, and I want to hook you up with him. So just give me a call during the week at 215-227-2727 before your hearing, and I'll let you get Mike's number, and his name's Mike also, and you can give him a call and ask your questions.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Take care. Have a great Sunday. Thanks for calling.
You too. Take care.
Let's talk to Deidre on line 4 from North Philly. Deidre?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
What's happening? What's happening in North Philly today? It's beautiful. Looks like it's going to start to be a beautiful day today.
It is. It's very nice.
Aren't you sick of the rain?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, it's just been so overcast and rainy almost every day. It's like, I want some warm, sunny weather.
Yes, that would be nice.
Yeah. What's your question today, Deidre?
Okay, my question is, I was in a car accident in 2007. The driver hit me. The insurance company paid the book value for my car, paid my medical bills, and my lost wages. But just recently, I got a letter in the mail from a collection agency for the ambulance ride. So
Okay.
I'm wondering, what do I do? I don't even have the same insurance company, so I don't know what to do.
Right. And and from 2007, I'm going to tell you that it's too late anyway. But let's tease this out. First of all, medical bills incurred as a result of an auto accident are always paid. You just used the generic, the insurance company, like there's only one. But in fact, when you have an auto accident, there's two insurance companies. There's yours and his, whoever he or she who caused the accident. He or she's insurance pays for some things, like if they're at fault, they may pay to repair your car. But they will not pay, even if they're at fault, your medical expenses. Medical expenses in Pennsylvania are paid by our own insurance company, okay, regardless of who's at fault. And so now, most people in Pennsylvania have the state minimum mandatory medical coverage, which is $5,000. If your $5,000 has been used up from other doctors and facilities, then they don't owe you anything more, and this bill wouldn't have gotten paid anyway. If, on the other hand, there was available coverage and the $5,000 hadn't been used up, then it is your insurance company on the date of that accident that would have been responsible to pay this medical expense. Now, the good news is there's a 4-year statute of limitations. A bill incurred in 2007, and it's now 2016, 9 years later, that bill isn't collectible by anybody. So that collection agency may have your debt, and they may call you and be a pain in your butt, but they legally could never collect that debt. The statute of limitations has run. You don't have to pay it.
Yay!
All right, Deidre, thanks for calling Court Radio. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, Deidre's happy. Happy. Satisfied client. All I have to do is tell her she doesn't know anything. All right, let's go on to the private line. We're going to talk to Lolly Bench. Hi, Lolly. Welcome to Court Radio, and thanks for joining us. Oh, hi to you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're a part of an organization called Campaign for Compassion. What is it? Explain to us how you got involved and what this organization is geared to do.
Well, Campaign for Compassion sort of started, I think, about 2.5 years ago or so. Originally, a large group of parents had sort of found each other over social media because we were all sort of in the same predicament, which was, having children with intractable epilepsy, which is basically it's medication-resistant epilepsy. And we had all basically exhausted all traditional treatment options for our children. And we're just, you find yourself at sort of the end of the road, and you're desperately searching for an alternative. And right around that time, Sanjay Gupta's documentary Weed had aired. And, of course, that documentary showed a case of a child in Colorado with intractable epilepsy, more specifically Dravet syndrome, who had responded extremely well to medical cannabis. So we all just sort of found each other and started to network and decided to begin lobbying together. And at some point we realized we sort of needed to, kind of have some branding, and we came up with the name Campaign for Compassion and moved forward. And basically, it's a grassroots advocacy group. We're just we worked really hard on making sure that we had medical cannabis legislation that that had a lot of support, and we thankfully got it over the finish line here recently.
Yeah. Kudos to you and to all the other folks who worked so hard to get medical marijuana passed as law in Pennsylvania. And
Thank you.
So you're looking forward to, how old is your daughter now?
She's 8.
Okay. And she still has this intractable condition?
She's doing pretty well, so we don't worry too much anymore.
Good.
Without going into specifics,
Well, let's not talk about your daughter. Let's talk about anybody with this condition. How often do they have to, do they smoke it? Do they eat it? How do they get it ingested into their system?
Well, there's a wide variety of delivery methods to choose from. Unfortunately, several of those were didn't make the final cut in Senate Bill 3. For instance, smoking is prohibited. Edibles are not going to be available. But, you can take it in pill, oil, tincture, and vaporization. They have restricted whole plant until the advisory board can make a recommendation on allowing it.
Right.
And,
I
within
think
2 years.
I think our listeners should know that Pennsylvania will, right now, the bill, the way it's drafted today, will allow pills, oils, and you can smoke it in one of those electronic cigarettes, a vape, but you can't get a bud and roll up a cigarette and smoke it in Pennsylvania. Now, that's subject to change. Okay, because it's going to take 18 months to 24 months to roll this law out and into effect. And all of this is subject to being tightened up or changed or, modified in some way. Is this an area that you think might get modified between now and the rollout?
No, it's not. It's not really going to be modified before then, I don't think. I think once the program is up and running, that it's something that the advisory board, if I had to guess, I think the advisory board is going to make a recommendation to allow for more delivery methods, and I would speculate that the Secretary of Health will, listen to those recommendations. I know they want to do what's right for patients, and whole plant is definitely the most cost-effective treatment option for patients. And they can control their dosage better if they're using whole plant rather than the concentrates.
That's interesting.
Because, you could put a bud in a vaporizer and just, take a few puffs of it, and it's a very clean and efficient way for a patient to medicate, especially a cancer patient that has a hard time swallowing pills or oils or what have you. And, they can control their dosage much better, whereas if you're using a concentrate, those are pretty potent, and you have a lot less control over the way it makes you feel. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I do. All right, Lolly, we got to take a break. We got some sponsors who need to have their time, and we'll be back to you. Just stay on the line.
Great.
The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Need more legal answers? Here's more Court Radio with your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome back. You're listening to Court Radio, and I'm Dean Weitzman. If you've got legal questions, I probably have the answer. All you got to do is give me a call at 215-227-2227. 2727. We've been talking today about Senate Bill number 3, which is the legalization of medical marijuana in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Some folks said it could never be done here. We had Republican House, a Republican Senate, and we did it. And we did it in part with the assistance of Lolly Bench. Lolly, welcome back to Court Radio.
Thank you.
And Lolly is involved in an organization called Campaign for Compassion, and that organization advocates for the humane treatment of folks with diseases and conditions which would benefit from medical marijuana. Fair enough?
Yes.
Good. So what happens when a kid smokes pot? Do they get high? Do they get a buzz? Do they, their eyes get all big and they want to go eat some brownies or something?
Well, the pediatric patients that are going to be served by Senate Bill 3 are not going to be smoking pot. They're going to be ingesting oil, a lot of them sublingually. The parents can also make them edibles at home, with the product that they purchase out of a dispensary. It depends on what strain these kiddos need. A lot of the intractable epilepsy cases may be able to start with something that's high in CBD and low in THC. That's not really necessarily going to give them a buzz. However, some of these kids need more THC if they're going through, benzodiazepine withdrawals, or if they're, going through puberty and the high CBD is just not cutting it. So we need a wide array of strains for them, and some of them might give them a buzz. But I don't think that you're going to find a parent that has a problem with that, because what we're talking about is a lot of parents who have watched their children high as a kite off of pharmaceuticals. So this is not something that is going to offend them or blow their minds. They've already seen these children very high.
Yeah, I never thought about that, because they're taking all kinds of really strong opioids and other types of drugs.
Well, the benzos are a class of drug that's widely used with cases with epilepsy. There's a rescue medication called it's rectal diastat, and so you know exactly how they get it based on the name.
Yeah.
But it's your child is going to just sort of be stumbling around like a drunk person after they have to take that as a rescue medication, and then they're going to probably just knock out for a few hours. It's just no way to live for these kiddos. So if these families can have something safer, something milder, and something more effective, then I think that they can live with the mild buzz that their children may experience. But I don't think, in most cases, the children are going to be taking strains that really don't have the that they won't experience the euphoria.
Lolly, how do people get in touch with your organization if they want to reach out? They have children or family members with a disease.
Well, they can find us on Facebook. That's probably one of the easiest ways. Seems like everybody's on Facebook now, and it's a great way for patients to connect. We have these wonderful support groups full of extremely compassionate patients that just want to help each other and offer support for one another. And we're all sort of waiting together. We're being patient together right now. And so, they can find us there. We have a Facebook page where they can message us, and then we'll, add them to support groups according to their needs. Or they can just go to our website, www.campaignforcompassion.com, and fill out a contact form there. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, and we look forward to hearing from more patients and offering them any support we can and any hope that we can give them. That's what we want to do right now, is just, offer them hope while we all wait for this program to be operational.
Congratulations on the new
Thank
law.
you.
Take care, Lolly. Thanks for joining Court Radio. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Folks, we're all out of time. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. If you have legal issues, give us a call during the week, 215-227-2727.